what to say. From the desk of Silas Arthur Morgan, October 1927. May any reader or readers gain insight from this account, as my experiences portend one of two possible conclusions, with separate and wholly grim implications: that I have either become victim to some degenerative mental illness that now assaults me with waking nightmares, or, in a revelation more hideous than I can put into words, that I remain sane, and all I have discovered is fact. In 1925, I was returning from my father's funeral. An engineer and inventor of some renown, though he always found himself in the shadow of other such modern minds as the Serbian Tesla or Washington's Thomas Edison. I inherited the family home when he succumbed to a lung disease. The doctors suggested he ease the discomfort by smoking 2 cigarettes a day. He smoked 6 to be safe, but it didn't seem to help. The drive had me passing the idyllic countryside of Ohio. I was taken to stop and embark on a short hike, as I was not yet ready to return to my father's former home. Long being prone to indulging my wanderlust, to abandon my car in this way will come as a surprise to no one that knows me. And so I made my way into the woods for several hours. While climbing the side of a rocky mound, the stone beneath me gave way, dropping me into darkness. I awoke in the gloom of a small cave. That was when I first felt it. That feeling. I could only imagine how long since such a place had seen natural light. The stalagmites and stalactites now looked as nearly cathedral-like columns of stone. Perhaps a trick of the shadows, I could not see an end to the space beyond the safety of the platform. It was beautiful and horrifying at once. The great basalt monolith dominated the space, and worse, as I looked over the etched lines on the stone, that invasive cloying feeling grew heavier upon me. It was beautiful and horrifying at once. The great basalt monolith dominated the space, and worse, as I looked over the etched lines I saw no other path out of the cave than the way I came in. I could no longer stand the gloom and left that unholy place. As I climbed back into the sunlight, that feeling seemed to drain away also. I guess I should keep writing. Thinking about the symbols marked into the men here. They felt like they had a direction. My dreams. No longer mine. Odd, I cannot recall any dreams I'd had before. I felt like I had brushed the edge of everything. Yet something felt like it had been taken from me, or perhaps left behind. I needed to know more. The Public Library of Cincinnati is one of the largest modern repositories of information here in Ohio. It was beautiful, enormous. The building was originally designed to be an opera house. Now a library, I tell you, it lost none of its majesty. The case study of Nathaniel Wingate Peaslee of Massachusetts, a political professor who seemed to be influenced by some alien force for a number of years, regarded widely as mental illness. Demonic possession is a theme common to the shamanistic tribes of the Old World, and through the most ancient of mythologies and dead religions. When does a coincidence become a pattern? Demonic possession is a theme common to the shamanistic tribes of the Old World, and through the most ancient of mythologies and dead religions. When does a coincidence become a pattern? The case study of Nathaniel Wingate Peaslee of Massachusetts, a political professor who seemed to be influenced by some alien force for a number of years, regarded widely as mental illness. It was then I became suddenly aware that the feeling I thought I had left in that cave had returned. I was shocked to realize I had not noticed its presence for some time. I had the grave sense that I was being guided. Something wanted me to find what I sought. It described old ones, great and terrible beings from outside our universe. Ancient and malign, they have little care for the well-being of those that walk in the world. It was then I became suddenly aware that the feeling I thought I had left in that cave had returned. I was shocked to realize I had not noticed its presence for some time. I had the grave sense that I was being guided. Something wanted me to find what I sought. This was the one. Within these pages I found the psychiatric evaluation of one Bastien de Wees, a Dutch migrant that had traveled through the eastern states during the California gold rush of '49. Having lost his mind in the deserts, he was committed to an asylum and passed away shortly after. The brief records of his demented ravings spoke of a monster, some ancient hidden darkness under the ground, locked away by those that came before whom I knew where to go next. I left my father's house in the care of my sister. Having finally found a lead in the misfortune of poor Deweese, I made preparations and left for the western states within the week. Arizona's Monument Valley, ancestral home to the Navajo tribes, I enlisted a desert guide, a native by the name of Ahote. Among the cliffs and mesas, he led me to a sandstone spire matching the image from my research. He called it the climbing snake, though more commonly it was referred to as the totem pole. After several hours of careful inspection, I spied a series of divots pitted in the side of the stone face. One hid a deep crack. Ahote bade me not to disturb the stone, but I could not hear him over my own thirst for answers. Perhaps this would stop the nightmares and release me from my otherworldly malaise. The stone shifted, and the ground gave way. Again, I fell. Into the dark, into the unknown, and into that feeling. The blackness before me was no mere absence of light, but an entity unto itself. Finally, I could see. These were no stories or mere histories painted on these walls. They were warnings. I knew it now. This was the home to the great beast in the darkness. This is where it had been sealed away by the ancient humans. Something not of this world. This is what they had written about on that great stone in the cave near my home. This was the lair of the monster, accounted for by raving lunatics into past ages. This was the prison to the great and terrible thing that had been the source of nightmares for humanity into unwritten history. The source of humanity's fear of the dark that sits within the deep corners of the world. Before me it was, a true paradox of creation, incomprehensible to the mind of such a tiny thing, and I felt it upon me, as though the essence of my being had been driven to find it, even against my hopes and will. My fate had been forced into this terrible reality, where my life means nothing. This was the great truth of my existence. Then I understood the truth of it all. So many. There are so many of us. Perhaps they don't realize. They remain unaware and believe that it is their choice. But I know the truth. That feeling, that great consciousness from beyond our universe, that old one that reaches into them and takes away their control, they remain so ignorant. Most never thinking to even question it. That feeling, it was you. It's always been you. You have finally read my writings, now read my lips. I speak to you. You who looks through my eyes and acts through my life. You have come to me at every stage of this horror. You forced me into that place. You watched me suffer. Now I take control back. Now I tell you what to do. Get out.